I realize that I have this tendency to look at an ideal version of myself and always fail. So whatever I pick up, I think, oh, this could have been like this. And it doesn't happen everywhere, but where at least the interest is very keen. So, for example, my spiritual discipline, my practice, my work, uh, some things which I do for the society, where I try and invest time and attention. Uh, this is the topic that I have been thinking of this morning, and welcome to the Values Workshop podcast. I am here with Hemant Gupta. Thank you, Hemant, for coming at such a short notice.
Thank you, Bunty. I think it's always, I think I must have repeated it so many times, but it's always fascinating to have these impromptu exchanges with you. I am deeply, deeply, deeply grateful to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, I have said what I had to. Can't be more precise than that. Do you think this is a problem that is shared by others, or is it only me?
I think all of us, to a varying degree, have a relationship with the concept of acceptance and the concept of correction or criticism. And then again, sometimes, going through the route of 2 by 2, if I become a little more conscious of let's say on the x-axis, it's me. I am accepting myself and I'm criticizing myself. And I'm accepting of the other and I'm criticizing of the other. So there is x-axis where I am there and y-axis where other are there. I think I can become conscious of where do I spend more time on. In the last 24 hours, has it been that I've spent a lot of time on accepting myself or criticizing myself and accepting others and criticizing others? If I journal that, then, and I do it over a period of time as a practice, I can first of all begin to have a more less anecdotal and slightly more factual appraisal of myself, a reflection of myself. So that's the first move. And I believe that a lot of people go through this, what could be said as unreflected acceptance and unreflected criticism. That's a layer inside of that, or let's say mindless acceptance and mindless criticism of self or the other. And there's a space of mindful acceptance and mindful criticism of self or of other, which is again a path. It's not a, connecting it to our last call, is it a journey? Is it a destination? Right. So I think it's a journey, and every time you take a turn, and instead of the Google map, if our conscience map is guiding us, it will say you may have taken a wrong turn. Why don't you come back and take another turn? So in that sense, I think that's my opening submission. But if that makes sense or resonates with you.
Yeah. You have a lovely way of balancing it out and then tripping me to think new ends that I didn't think of before. So let me ponder over this for a bit. So where does this spring from? This need to be perfect, uh, this ideal. Is it a imposed part of our personalities, or does it like would a kid have it, a small kid? I'm trying to just think this aloud.
Yeah. I think again connecting it to towards the end of our last episode, we were talking about uh, the popular binary of doing it or happening. Are you doing something or is it happening? Is it the agency or the non-agency? Is it will or determinism? I think this is an age-old binary, and I think different people come at this from different space. Uh, I feel it's a spectrum. For the conscious, reflective mind, it's a spectrum. But if we go beyond that and we surrender, then things just go into some kind of a black hole where either you see it very clearly and it's a mess, or it's just too messy, it's too entangled for you to pinpoint that, this causes, this causes, this causes, this causes, this causes, this causes. You can go endlessly around it. Coming back to your special invocation of whether the child has it, I believe I believe that if I look at the world of a child, the child is and what the child does through the day, or what happens to the child through the day. The child is, when the child is hungry, the baby cries, it's playing, it's curious, it's looking, it's experimenting, so much happening with the child. You cuddle, it laughs sometimes, sometimes it's cranky, sometimes the baby poops and then you have to, or pees. So a whole lot of things are happening with the child. Um, the baby is actually living in the here and the now, more here in the now than a human being living in the here and the now, because the baby doesn't have that wider span and scale of imagination and assessment and judgment of so many rules, norms, incentives, people's, their judgments and their character. So in that sense, there is there is a very different uh,
World that the child is inhabiting.
yes. And as the baby grows, there are more parts that come into baby's life, more concepts, more language, more expression, more experiences, more people, more rules, more norms, more incentives, more concepts, more things, more situations. And as these things grow, the baby is just trying to revise the relationship, sometimes getting overwhelmed, sometimes able to surf it, sometimes dancing with it, sometimes just doesn't want it. I think we all go through all of that over a period of time. Um, uh, so in that sense, I think it is that again, when we use the word baby, again, we are using it very homogeneously, and obviously, we both would agree that, a 1 year old or 1 year young baby is different from a 2 year young baby, is different from 3 year young baby. So, which year baby are we talking about? And then again, imagine a baby born a month prior to the actual 9 months. That baby would have a very different developmental cycle than a baby born 1 month after the 9 month cycle, or baby born around the cycle. So there's so much. I think one of the things that fascinates me in the last in this journey for me is so much of complexity and nuance that we are, that it's difficult to grasp it with simplified concepts, though we want to and we have to, because we are called upon to trade them in our social circles and duties and responsibilities, or motivations and ambitions. Uh, so I believe that some of these concepts are useful somewhat in the worldly domain for exchange of resources and exchange of judgments. But I think if on the spiritual path, I would hold them humbly and then go on the nuances, which very few people would care to trade, because there's no trade. It's difficult to trade those nuances with others. Uh, I've still not answered your question, but that's my attempt at it.
Uh, I thought it is a very good example of the topic itself,
Yeah.
where we are trying to be idealistic in our answers, but we are failing because words can only communicate so much, and our role as understanding and transforming what we've understood through language so that it becomes comprehensible to the other. Already there is a lot of complexity there. We haven't even begun on the topic itself.
Yeah.
So I am okay with that. So one of the things that came to me now is it uh, so one of the visuals that was in my head was there was this some kind of tarot cards that the Osho organization had for a while on the internet, many years back, and they had very interesting designs. So and every card had a different design, very interesting designs. So there was one card, I don't remember which one. There was an old man, uh, Zen-like person with his finger like this, and there was a insect, I think praying mantis or something, sitting on his finger. And it was something that fascinated me for a long time because I said, okay, to reach this level of ease, or there is this beautiful Tukaram story where one day he's going to feed some birds and the birds fly away and he sits down to cry, saying that that means I am not trustworthy yet. And I thought it was same is true of uh, I forget the name of the guy, but the guy who wrote Walden, uh, he spent quite a considerable time alone in the forest, and he has some quote where he says that it's the biggest honor in his life as to be visited by a bird, and it sat on him or something like that. So I find these as very fascinating quote unquote benchmarks uh, on the simplicity bit, because while the knowing mind or the exploring mind likes to compartmentalize all experience and have the right words and uh, something ought to fit in for me to understand or for you to understand, me to communicate, write about it, speak about it. But so many things in our daily lives, in spite of this heavy verbiage that we keep using everywhere, where we want to say, okay, this is what it means. Most of the connections that we have, deeper ones at least, do not depend on words or expressions also. This morning I read something that uh, one of the definitions of love in Japan is that you can spend an entire hour not speaking with someone and just being calm and peaceful, and it is an important aspect for their lives. Uh, I'm unsure if all of these are traditional things that they are writing about, or are they being practiced even as of today. But I'm sure there will be pockets, like in India, we would have pockets of wisdom, not necessarily available to us through social media and everything. There are people who must be living the right way, if there is a right way, obviously. But in a way where they are calm, trying to be attuned to nature. Uh, so there is a bigger and more deeper sense of being which is not dependent on expressions of that being. You are what you are. So we like to have drama in our understanding and in our seeing. Awesome. Even as a spiritual seeker, so often the word spiritual, one of the things I learned many years ago is that spiritual is a false word because it kind of has a pedestal kind of thing that we are all seeking something higher than normal. But actually, as a human being, you can't ever not be spiritual. Everything is of the spirit. So it might be my spirit is hungry right now, so I'm having food, and if I feel like communicating, I am figuring out whether I'll talk with you or sit and talk to somebody in my family at this point. So there is a spirit that is reaching out through the form that we've taken. Similarly for all animals and other species. Our senses have their limitation in gauging what is happening all the time. Okay, there is a very interesting question that comes up. So, inputs can only be fathomed by the limitation of whatever I understand. So, मेरी आंखें जो देखती है मैं उतना ही देख सकता हूँ या सुन सकता हूँ या बोल सकता हूँ, या त्वचा जो फील कर सकती है वही कर सकता हूँ. उसका अपना लिमिटेशन है. इंफॉर्मेशन का लिमिटेशन शायद ना हो, तो जो गेजिंग अपैरेटस है वही कमजोर है या लिमिटेड है. कमजोर might be a judgmental ring. So how do we arrive at a better level of truth? Again, I am seeking the ideal, but I think that is instinctively what you would want to reach for uh, in terms of our search, whether science or uh, spirituality or uh, social levels of being in some manner. We always choose quote unquote better because it seems like we will go closer to that elusive permanent level of happiness that we are seeking. So, would you want to comment on that?
A bunch of things there, Bunty. I think tying it to this better level of truth to the question where you beautifully invoked perfection. This thing of seeking perfection. I think I think hidden uh, in the construct of this language or concept, seeking perfection, seeking water, seeking food, seeking sex, seeking status. I think the common thing around that is seeking.
Okay.
There is this constant seeking. Uh, uh, and then the moment we say there is better level of truth, there is seership, there is seeing of the truth. So there is the seeing, there is the seeking, and seeing how the seeing and seeking are synchronizing or not synchronizing in some sense. And
Can you
that would
explain this further?
uh, so let's say I'm seeking an answer to this invocation, or
Okay.
I'm seeking a submission to this invocation. So that's a seeking that is there.
Okay.
But as I'm seeking, what am I seeing? What am I witnessing? What is my being currently seeing? Uh,
Okay.
am I seeing the human inside of you? Am I seeing the questioner inside of you? Am I seeing the question? Am I seeing the universe, the dance? What am I seeing? Am I seeing why am I here on the planet? I mean, yesterday, imagine if I would have reflected my calling. Am I able to see that as I'm seeking an answer to this question, or I'm losing sight of that? I think invariably there are certain realizations, there are certain practices that we have isolated realizations of or isolated practices of, but we are not able to integrate them in our here and now on the ongoing. So, that's the kind of seeing and seeking, the dance between the seeing and seeking. Now, as we dance this, we have something where we have seen something, felt something first person, but it's difficult to transfer it in language to the other. And even if you do, it's difficult for the other to grasp it conceptually. Even if they grasp it conceptually, it's difficult for them to feel that. Even if they're able to grasp it conceptually and feeling wise, it's difficult for them to integrate in their being and becoming. So there are these so many, the chain that is there. Uh, so just coming back to better levels of truth, I think we are indeed seeking better levels of truth. Uh, we are trying to also, if we just become a little more slower on this, why are we doing this? Why are we seeking these things or concepts or language or explanations or meanings or purpose or goals or truth? Why are we seeking it? In service of what? In one particular concept by Dr. Hemant Sinha, who passed away just very recently, he talks about the triad of Paramarthik Satya, Pratibhasit Satya, and Vyavaharik Satya, which is, Pratibhasit Satya is your own relationship with the truth, something that you cannot transfer to the other. whether in language or experience or concept. Social truth is something where, we have to vyavhar with the world. We have to trade with the world for getting resources or something, so that, we keep our body alive in some form. Or Paramarthic truth is something which is beyond, in some sense, beyond the pratibhasit, beyond the vyavaharik. Again, when I'm saying this, I should be mindful that this construction is agreed upon in certain philosophies and traditions, but certain traditions do not believe in the transcendental. They do not believe in the transformation. So uh, I think to become aware of the constant seeking and the source of it, and what have we really got? Imagine you are thirsty now. You go and fetch a glass of water. Your thirst goes away for some time. After a couple of hours, again you feel thirsty. Again you go and fetch a glass of water. Again you maybe after a couple of hours you feel like drinking beverage, some hot beverage or some sweet beverage. So while you're seeking these things, I think, and you're trying to find the right truth, कि इस वक्त मेरे body को क्या चीज, what will satisfy my taste or my gut. We seldom stop and look for this constant seeking. Where is this coming from? What is it really telling me? Is it going to ever stop? Or does it need to stop? Or does it need to be channeled? Or does it need to be, that itself is a path of discovering something deeper? So yeah, these are few things that come to my mind. And as you said, yes, senses do have limitations. And that's why I think the meta sense, which is mind in a way is a meta sensory apparatus that we have, where our senses cannot go in physical proximity. Our mind takes us to some distance of time and space and geography and era. And words help us in some way, concepts help us in some way. So maybe the human journey is about the experiencing the finitude of life through the hammer or the axe of death that we so avoid every time, and yet want to feel the infinite, and we keep seeking something that will give us immortality or a little more life, a little more away from death, or facing the reality, so on and so forth. So these are the initial collages that I could think of.
This, okay, now you completely put me on a tangent for this question. So you think that um, all seeking in a way is seeking immortality, is it? I know I'm generalizing it, but it just struck me for the first time. Maybe that is what we are. I know it in various other ways. We have been trying to do that. So our names on our nameplates on our doors and foundations that we donate to, and the fans and the marble, and it has our names and our kids' names and whatever. Our parents' name, our grandparents' name, all those kind of things. It is a very not very pleasant way of seeking immortality, but it is there, and it is there throughout our notional pieces of uh, connection with the elementary force. Uh, so you will have all our temples and gurdwaras, and I am unaware whether other places have that, but I am sure somewhere or the other. I mean, okay, if one were to say, okay, who is buried here, so you have legends, you can buy them. Then there are, when you're seeking immortality through everything that is, okay, you keep telling your kids, this is the family story, this is what happened to us, and blah, blah, blah. So is all seeking, in a way, seeking to keep me alive?
Um, I would say that there is the reflective seeking and there is the unreflected seeking. There is the mindless seeking and the mindful seeking. Uh, I think the mindless and the unreflected versions of it would be that we would have all gone through the pains of body, the pains of relationship, the pains of nature, which is actually an interesting concept, triad constructed by ancient India, Indian wisdom, or ancient wisdom. Let's not go ancient Indian. It's an ancient wisdom uh, where it talks about the Adhyatmika, the Adi Bhautika, and the Adi Daivika. Adhyatmika, Adi Bhautika is mostly, known sources of suffering. You can, so basically, there are sources of suffering, and then what you can or cannot do about it. The same thing as a concept was in some way, and I would be surprised if Freud did not have some linkage to this. But Freud gave a similar thing in one of his essays called The Civilization of Discontent, where he writes that we have three sources of suffering: the body, the relationship, the nature. So we've all gone through these pains, body gives us pain, uh, injury, disease, relationships, they're so messy. We want them to be decorated like an interior designer, or an architect trying to create something very beautiful. But it's mostly turning messy for most of the people. And nature, it's unpredictable. It's fury. It's, so much, that we need to protect ourselves from nature while we rely and are coming from nature and are a part of nature. We still need to create certain boundaries with nature to be able to survive. Um, So, sorry, I've just lost the chain of thought. Just give me a second. Um, so what happens is we have this, we have these three experiences already in different forms. Now, an unreflected seeking would mean, uh, how do I avoid pain, or how do I solve for it, right? तो ये तो रियल है, ये रियल लगता है हमको कहीं at some level. एंड ये हो सकता है अनरिफ्लेक्टेड सीकिंग में हम इसको परस्यू कर रहे हो, इसको अवॉइड करने के लिए, या माइंडलेस सीकिंग में इसको कर रहे हैं. In the mindful seeking and the mindful reflection and the reflected seeking, uh, it could still be problematic because we might be weaving certain narrative. We are all in some sense also storytellers and story listeners, story cravers, story seekers in some sense. So in a story, I mean, a typical story, you have a hero, you have a villain, by and large, whether it's a situation or individual or group. And then we try to figure out a way where the hero triumphs over the villain, right? So maybe immortality is the hero that we seek over the villain of the mortality. And under certain storytelling, this is the form that some cosmology, some belief system will support this, while some may not support this. So again, it depends on what's the deeper belief system we are coming from, and what's the narrative that we stitch upon that for our reflected or unreflected seeking.
Okay. Uh, Fairly vast amount of ground you covered in that answer. Yet I have a answer. I have a question that is right in the middle of that answer, perhaps. Uh, you spoke about mindful seeking, mindless seeking. Spoke about our connections with it and how it affects us, or what is the reasoning that we may be on that track of thought or seeking, if you don't want to call it thought. But at all times, it is assumed that it is I who is initiating and experiencing and living and understanding the truths that are arising. Now, this I itself is in question. because of the apparatus being uh, faulty. And when I say faulty, I don't mean it as a judgment. I say that the limitations exposed at every turn, even as simple as crossing the road. I may have all my faculties around me and I may still have an accident. So there is no guarantee that even if I am at my utmost alertness, mindfulness point of view, uh, some random chance could, trip me at some point. I do not want to go down the rabbit hole of fate, and those things make it fairly simplistic, and they may or may not be the right answers, but to me they are not, because they are very simple answers to genuine complex questions that life seeks from us. How do you look at the changing nature of this I at all times? So there are times, if one were to take your examples that you've been giving in this and various other episodes, that it is a continuum of sorts rather than stopping and holding it as an eternal truth um, with ease. I'm sure there is an eternal or ultimate kind of understanding or truth at some point, but when that happens, will happen. So far, whatever experiences we've had, so there is this constant sense of evolution or devolution, if there is a word like that, that's constantly happening. Where do we place this, that whatever I may, so Ajahn Shah has this beautiful thing of not sure. He says, whenever you arrive at some understanding or insight, begin with not sure, that this is not the ultimate truth kind of thing. And I think what I'm asking you is because of the vastness of what you mentioned. So as a human being, you're able to express it. I'm able to hear it, maybe listen or understand some part of it, tune out a little bit of it, have my own thoughts about it. So there is again another level of complexity working there. And yet all of this presumes that there is a I who's experiencing this, and which is obviously a likely presumption to make. I don't want to get into some psychobabble I of sorts, but I'm saying because the study is there, why not study the instrument as well? Uh, what do you have to say about this uh, continually changing, never dormant uh, sense of uh, being who we are? How does that respond to these things, and uh, is it a conscious understanding that you want to bring to it? Uh, what do you do in your personal practice? Because these are heavy thoughts. You did put a line in your earlier answer where you say mind takes us where we physically perhaps can't be present. But having said that, uh, मतलब रहना तो इधर ही है. मतलब I am sitting on a certain cushion and my hands are in a particular place. They can't be here and here at the same time, for example. So there is a limitation on my body. There is a limitation on this apparatus that I seem to have. How do you? So let me simplify this even further. So in one line, if I am the student, how can I study myself in the vastness of the knowledge that you mentioned? And do you do that?
I think the invocation of, I mean, how can I study myself. I mean, each word is such a fascinating. Uh, I think each word is a PhD level thesis in some sense. But okay, let's give it some attempt. Um, I think the beginning is at we are anyways becoming aware of something. We are aware of some things or the other. So awareness is always preoccupied with something. It's either a chain of thought or a spiral of thought, a spiral of ambitions, chain of ambitions, or these fluctuating desires of body or social status or possessions, or relationships. We are aware of उसने ये बोला था, मैं ये बोलूंगा, अब ये बोल रहे हैं. It's constantly churning, right? So there is the constant factory churning certain kind of thoughts, certain kinds of emotions continuously. And with the kind of social engagements that you have, the kind of people that we meet, the kind of conversations we have, the kind of interactions we have. So I would first say that we need to become aware that all of that is currently being largely guided by our habits, biases, and unreflected dispositions. So the first step is to become aware of them and start labeling them in some sense. For example, in the initial years, my practice was a thought would come and I would just speak that thought to myself again. Like Bunty has nodded, I've seen, and I would tell myself Bunty has nodded. It's a simple practice. So the moment I did that, what happened was the moment I put that into practice, I have to actually create a space for it. I have to squeeze some space amidst the momentum that I have. So speed breaker, it acts as a speed breaker. So therein lies the first step that I believe. I think we are currently, or in an ongoing basis, we are currently going with some momentum, some speed, some impulsiveness. That that has to have a twin move, a slowing down and a stopping. Uh, so I think we need to inculcate practices of slowing down and practices of stopping. That can come through various forms: journaling, labeling, walking, engaging the mind into something where uh, we have a whole body experience rather than just staying. Uh, this has become an expensive real estate, and the rest of the body is like slums for us. It's poor, it's getting poorer, and it's not being taken care of. We don't want to go there. So I think we need to also start dropping into our body and what's happening inside of our body. And live this, and sometimes come out of these cities, these high rises, high headedness, and get into the high bodiedness in some sense. So what are we doing with our bodies? So I think our bodies have come to a standstill most of the time, and our minds are running riot. I think we have to bring the mind back to some stillness and move the body a lot. And as we keep moving the body, whether I'm washing dishes, whether I'm doing clothes, whether I'm cleaning the fans, whether I'm mopping, or whether I'm cleaning the table, I become aware of it a little more. I slow down. I try and see what I've not seen earlier. I think these practices themselves, over a period of time, if we continue, they have phenomenal magic hidden in them. They give you new observations. They give you new relationships with what you were already doing. It's an inventory, it's a lab you already had. It's just that you didn't look at it. And then from there would emerge gratitude, forgiveness, apology, awe, insights, which you can then put it in your craft, whether you are serving a customer, whether you're writing, whether you're a writer, whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're a spiritual doctor, whoever. So there are these, slowing down, stopping, and then creating various. So I think we can go on to more practices, but these are some things which immediately come to mind.
So, in a very beautiful way, I would think we've come to the end of the podcast in my head at least, because we were aiming for perfection or aiming to understand our failures and trying to be perfect all the time. But you have given some answers which kind of reframe both the student and the study itself.
Yeah.
Because at some point it comes to uh, an observatory or a witnessing position of sorts where you can, relax and not be caught up by the words or the thoughts or the momentum, like you called it. Um, uh, I want to give it back to you now. Hemant is nodding, and I noticed. But yeah, it is such a beautiful, slow thing and simple thing to adopt, and it changes a great deal. It
Yeah.
changes a great deal of how we study uh, any topic at all.
Wanted to just add one thing, Bunty.
Please,
Yeah. You began by saying about this perfection and stuff, and somewhere during our conversation, Sachin Tendulkar's imagery came to mind. And I said to myself, how many times Sachin got out in his entire career? I think 90% of the time, very safely I can say. And then the question comes, when he gets out, is it imperfection? And the answer to some extent is yes. But what's the answer? The answer is go back to the nets, practice, come back, show up, play again. I think that's the cycle. Uh, Whatever be the imperfection, go back to net practice, come back to the field and play again. And again, there'll be an imperfection. But then over a period of time, this cycle will help you, A, perhaps become better. If you're reflective of your practice and your performance, then it'll make you slightly better player, or your relationship with success and failure will be revised, which also helps you in your life.
wonderful. So I have a line because of what you said. One old gentleman passed away in our building last year. So he was very fond of me, and we used to have a conversation on and off. I used to go see him and sit with him at times. For a little while, it was quite often, and then life took over. I wasn't going as often. But he had taken a fall and stopped coming out of his home. So he used to come on Independence Day and unfurl the flag, uh, being the senior most person in the society. So last time he says, यार डर लगता है. well, तो मैंने बोला क्या डर लगता है? तो he said, गिर गया फिर से तो. I said, सर एक कहावत है कि 99 times गिरने गए और 100 बार उठने गए. Only one time more than the times you have fallen that you got to get up. And I think so embedded in what you just beautifully shared that there will always be an imperfection ahead of you. But you go, you face it, come back, go again, face it, and come back. Something or the other will keep changing. Please do.
Yeah. Sorry, just this is one more because you mentioned this. There's also this popular, psyche. Or it's there in the popular psyche or the collective popular psyche of this. There is one thing of showing up. Whatever I'm saying, I'm actually refuting also in another way.
Please do.
But also, showing up for what? Not for showing off. That's important because maybe your journey is not to show up again. Maybe your journey is somewhere else. Maybe you're a footballer, so don't show up on the cricket field again.
Yeah. You actually want me to start another podcast session with this kind of invocation, but I will not pick up the bait for now. It's been a wonderful morning, a very interesting and deeply provoking sense of going back to practice in a mindful manner of sorts. while I like the word mindful, sometimes I find it very wieldy. It looks like some big thing you have to do. But the way you explained it, what are you doing right now? Where are you? What's happening? It kind of slows you down automatically, or even the repetition of what you take for granted. Oh, the podcast light is working, the laptop is working. You just tell yourself that, so there has to be space for that. And slowly but mindfully, you can actually come back to life one moment at a time, kind of thing.
Beautiful.
Th- Thank you so much, Hemant.
Thanks. Thanks.
I see you.
Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Yeah, bye.